which one was actually the placeholder. It may even be that Amumu, but we're going to be finding the answer to that very shortly as we wait for the picks and bans to appear on your screens once again.
Okay.
There we go. So we're rushing through it, and that was the Maokai and Vi. So the placeholder was not from Unicorns of Love, and it would suggest it was from NIP, and indeed it was. The Amumu will actually be in place of the Aatrox, which will be thrown in the top lane.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a different style to the Lulu that they had been playing, but typically they're going to send Aatrox over into a solo lane, and then the rest of Ninjas in Pyjamas will be pretty happy to just take the team fight 4v4 on the map. So it's one of those things that Aatrox is a pretty good split pusher once he's got a couple of items under his belt. Pretty tanky, got quite a lot of damage himself, but interesting where that Maokai, where the Vi is going to sit. They changed around a couple of times already. Maybe they'll change again. Makes it a bit difficult of what to read to put in lane. I would surmise maybe that I would like to think Vi perhaps might be a bit better in a laning situation, but that's not to say it's particularly good.
Yeah, it's found herself in like a couple games in solo queue, but that does not directly translate to actually competitive play. A lot of the mid lane picks can be thrown straight from solo queue and then transplanted in competitive, but with the other picks, it's so reliant on your teammates and that other synergy, that kind of extraneous factor that you don't have in solo queue. You don't know how it's going to work out. But with everything being locked in, that's a Maokai top lane.
And I guess a lot of what my basis of kind of laning for both champions has been pre-changes to Maokai. So he did have a couple of changes on the patch, mostly to help his jungle rather than anything. Now does percentage health damage on his W. They took the wind-up time off the animation. The Q now, the sapling's now slow as well, so that might be another factor that may help the laning phase a little bit, but I mean, Maokai in general isn't the best laning champion. I mean, yes, he'll get a little bit of sustain from his passive. Every time 5 abilities are used around him, you can then, your next auto attack will heal you for a certain amount of health. But he's not exactly the most consistent champion when it comes to getting through the early game, even out of the jungle. So to get through the early game in a lane may be pretty difficult.
Yeah, like he has the makings of a strong laner, but we've never really seen it in practice. And then when you compare him to other top lanes at the moment, you're like, not sure if this is going to work out. Because one of the other picks at the top lane is Gragas, which was banned out by Unicorns of Love. Seen a lot of play in OGN, likes to go for Lichbane first as well. So a little bit of tankiness mixed with a lot of damage as well. Highly maneuverable. Maokai sort of has that, but has now less damage because the E damage was reduced, and now that has a slow, so there's more utility there. But does that constitute a strong laner, or does that constitute a strong ganker, which is where he's seen play recently?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like he has seen play out of the jungle because he's been helped with his ganking ability pretty much, and you don't exactly do that too much from the top lane. Top lane tends to be that island on its own, so I wonder how a second AP champion is going to work here. I guess it's another sense of protection for Tristana, perhaps. Maybe it's kind of like that angle of it, that they're looking for that damage reduction from the ultimate. And then, obviously protecting. Maokai has a lot of peel in the late game. That's one of his best utilities, is anything that jumps through onto your AD carry. You instantly root them, you slow them, and your cooldowns aren't too great that you don't just root them again after another Q to just push them back a little bit. So it's one of those things that it'd be interesting to kind of pry into the minds of Unicorns of Love and see exactly why they picked it, because it was blind as well into that top lane. They did not know what they were against.
So we've spoken a lot about that composition, but we had the Aatrox pickup as well. As you mentioned, it can be a strong split pusher, and the rest of the composition as well. We'll see how that fits in with them. And because the picks have now just left our screen, I wasn't going to talk about them, and I'd have fallen out my head. But
loading screen.
We'll see him in a second. But yeah, like the Aatrox is going to be in there. We had an Orianna as well.
Yeah.
And what was banned out was Power of Evil's Syndra, which is funny because he used to play for them. So it's just like, we know what you're good at because we played with you all the way through DreamHack. There were so many teams who actually didn't ban that against Power of Evil and then realized, oh, that's actually a really bad decision. And then we saw those games just end really, really quickly with Power of Evil always going through. But we'll have those picks once again on your screen. And more importantly for us, so we can talk about them.
Yes, indeed. Although I can remember them. That's
really?
Fine. Yeah, it was. I could have, if they hadn't have just appeared, I would have been able to tell you all 10.
I can remember them as I can see them right now on my screen.
I would have remembered all 10. I promise you. Okay. If we could go back in time and I could go through the picks and bans again, I would remember them perfectly, but sadly, that's not the case. Time has eluded us, and we are into the loading screen already. But this is just very standard NIP, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
This is what I would expect going into a game where they feel confident in the game, they feel confident that they're going to win it, but they just obviously need the right team composition, and they've played this comp so many times.
Yeah, and they just need a couple seconds to compose themselves before we get into game. But we haven't had any disconnects, so that's a very good sign. It means that probably someone's having some peripheral problems. Maybe their mouse isn't working, maybe their trackball has fallen out.
This is where we end up in a 30-minute pause without any disconnects.
Yeah.
And Pulse is
That's
like, it's
happened
fine,
before.
nobody disconnected. Don't worry about it.
We've casted games where that's happened, where we'll go for 2 minutes, and then it will just be delayed for half an hour. And we went into negative time in that game, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first FACEIT Challenger
Oh, yeah.
Invitational, I
Yeah, it
believe.
was, yeah.
That seems like a long
know.
time ago.
And the weird thing is, the team stayed in. So it was just like, they didn't even know what was going on. We didn't know what was going on, and just kind of sat there talking for half an hour. Welcome to the FACEIT chat show with myself, Pulse, and Stress.
Chat show. Normally you need guests for a chat show, though.
Yeah, we can probably find someone. It's like a guy off the street who's like, hey, do you know anything about League of Legends? Anyway, we are into game. Ninjas in Pyjamas on the red side will be coming into this game very strong after their recent performances. But Unicorns of Love recently beat them out yesterday in the Black Monster Cup. See if they can repeat that success, but they will be in the blue side this time around. And everyone is fanning out into their jungle, which is fairly standard from what we see recently, Stress. We'll see if we see any early aggression from these two teams.
See, now, I'm really wondering how this Maokai is going to do in lane. And I know there's somebody in chat that's like, I've played Maokai, or I saw Maokai being played in lane, or something like that, and he's amazing. But then, until you've really seen it in, like, LCS, and apologies if it was, like, a game that happened earlier today somewhere around the world. We have been traveling, so it's one of those things of, like, not being able to be quite caught up. But I'm really anticipating seeing how it does, because in my estimation, it may even be one of the very few options where I'd look to maybe, if I wasn't confident in a 2v1, put a lot of pressure on that top lane.
Maokai has a little bit of sustain, of course from his passive and the extra spells. And if you think about it, how many spells do top laners use by themselves? Because in the duo lane, people have been talking about Maokai maybe being a decent support now. And because there's so many people in that lane, there's 4 people down there, means that there's a lot to feed his passive. But in the top lane, there's only one dude, so we'll see how that also plays into things.
Indeed. It's one of those things that until we get underway, I have a feeling, though, Cabochard picking Aatrox after knowing what the placeholder was, should be pretty confident with this. I mean, Aatrox is a top laner that most top laners will have in their playbook and be able to bring out, but he's pretty strong right now in the actual meta, especially when you consider the bans. I think it was like Gragas and Irelia were banned out, so it means that Aatrox really doesn't have a lot of contention when it comes to that kind of sustain game. That's one of the things he's really good at, is out-sustaining his laning opponent.
So, the mid lane Power of Evil, who was subbing for Ninjas in Pyjamas, will be facing down what was their top laner, FACEIT, who, of course, was in the LCS as a mid laner, moved to the top lane, and is now back in the role he's been playing with for a couple splits, and is picking up the Orianna, which is not only a pick, but also a lane that we're seeing very, very often. The Ziggs, the Orianna, and saw that yesterday, and saw them basically just farm it out and have a lot of gold to use in any which way they wanted to. In the bot lane, Voidal. If you're confused about his name, just read it backwards and it all makes sense. Oh, Vardax does get caught by the Akka Prison. Some auto attacks from Freeze, and Voidal will take him to 50%. And are actually getting the better of this lane so far.
Yeah, that was a really nice bubble landing, and you saw Hylisang kind of disrupt them a little bit with the Flay, but the damage had already been done, so that bottom lane, as you expect out of Freeze and Voidal, putting on that pressure very early on in the lane. That's one of the things they've been exceptionally good at, is dominating every challenger bot lane.
So, in the jungle, Dan, one of the new additions to the roster, actually. Vardag, Hylisang, and Vidixati you'll know from their previous performances, but Dan in the jungle, the Power of Evil. It's interesting he's put a V at the beginning of the name. That wasn't there before, but clearly likes to change that up. But 2 new additions to their roster, and we'll see how they fit into the team.
I wonder whether someone stole his name.
That's possible. Maybe his alternate account.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't really want to delete the account.
But setting up for a bottom lane gank here is Ku. Ooh, hook lands onto
freeze from Harasang right through the minions. Not something that they could capitalize on, but an impressive hook nevertheless. We all have Ku coming in from the top side. Managed to take away the golems, but will not be fancying his chances for a dive just yet.
It is, however, going to slow down that gank and actually result in no gank going through at all. Just that hook was enough to kind of offset freeze, but Ku in the middle lane is looking for his way in.
Into the mid lane, the flash and the Vault Breaker from Dan. Both of the junglers taking critical damage. One more bounce, there it is, the first blood goes to Power of Evil. Alex is going deep to get one in return, but takes 2 tower shots. Power of Evil quite happy to auto-attack him on the way out, collects himself the double.
Oh man, I really do not think that was worth it at all for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Alex flashed forward to make sure he got a kill there, but it's not exactly a kill that's going to do all that much. He's now up against a 2-0 Ziggs in that lane, and actually taking a look at this top lane, you can see just how much damage this Maokai has.
One of the questions on our mind going into this game was how is Maokai going to do? And against Aatrox, the question is, well, the answer rather is very, very well. Taking Cabochard down very, very low, forced to use his W to sustain up. And some pretty brutal harassment coming out from DignitasStress.
And that you saw the sustain right there after the that auto attack. Just managed to keep himself pretty healthy. But Ku now looking for the top lane.
He is. They will go for this dive. Ku comes in. There's the blood well, but DignitasStress is not even in danger of being taken out. In fact, Cabochard is not taking up the turret, but will take the arcane smash on the way out. DignitasStress was like, okay, I guess I'll just go about my day.
Ku just really isn't getting into the game yet, and when he has been in lanes, it's just not really resulting in anything. And to be honest, that's what I was kind of talking about in Champion Select with his Evelynn, is he wants to be very aggressive, but it doesn't always pay off for him. And very importantly, Power of Evil is now level 6, so that ultimate is available. And I thought for a second he was looking to roam to pick off Cabochard, but with no Bloodwell passive, that could be an early kill in the next couple of minutes here if Power of Evil decides to roam towards the top side.
And I think it's fair to say Ku doesn't seem to know the limits of Evelynn as well as he would with, say, a Lee Sin, because that's one of the plays he'd make as Lee Sin, and it would work out, and you would get that kill, and it would be clean, and they would just get away with the dive. But it's multiple times now we've seen him on the Evelynn, and the same sort of thing happened in the early game.
Yeah, I think one other way to look at it as well is that there's a lot of crowd control from Vizichachi, who actually has popped his ultimate up in that top side of the map. Looked like he was just taking a little too much damage out in Cabochard. Interestingly enough, he's building this very much like you would build a top lane Gragas. Looks like he's going for that Rod of Ages, likely into a little bit more damage before any sense of tankiness, as Maokai, you know, using his ultimate and just the way he builds normally will end up fairly tanky. So interesting to see that with Gragas banned out, perhaps this is a very similar style champion.
Yeah, very much a European build, going for the Rod of Ages first from the Gragas and trying to perform a similar sort of role. Is very disruptive, has some knockback, has the slow now. The AoE damage disruption from his ultimate. Now a little bit smaller, but we'll follow him around. So we'll head in with the twisted advance and now use the ultimate follow after Cabochard. We'll be just popping that off as Sachi's mana total was dropping low, but more importantly, Cabochard's life total was very close to hitting 0, and since he didn't have the blood well, I was going to say he didn't want to stay in, but he's hanging around. And with Dan off to the side, I'm not sure if he really wants to be here.
Dan isn't quite level 6 though, so they're not going to be able to get in there with the ultimate, but Ziggs' Mega Inferno Bomb was looking for it. Dan was already into the lane. Does not quite get the Vault Breaker.
But Dan's now tanking the turret. We'll just finish him off with a couple of auto attacks. Ku is now there. We'll finish off the opposing jungler, but Power of Evil has roamed from the mid lane. Gets the ultimate and a fantastic shockwave. Locks down DignitasStress and Power of Evil will get the extra damage. DignitasStress still quite healthy. It does have his ultimate. Alex will be feeling some pain when that's popped off, but we'll be stepping out of the circle. Auto attacks may be enough. The last auto attack, the Clockwork Wind-up, last command attack will be taking him down. Power of Evil may also be taken out here as we have a trade in the bottom lane, but Alex is still looking for blood. Power of Evil was able to satchel charge away to the turret.
Yeah, just gets himself out, and that was a pretty hectic engagement there. As you saw Dan go all the way up into that top lane, trying to combo with the Ziggs ultimate, just got dodged out by Cabochard up in that top lane. So it kind of resulted that Ninjas in Pyjamas picked up a couple of kills from that, ended up going pretty well for them, and importantly enough, they've now started to get a couple more kills on the board. Ku's got one, Alex each picked up one for himself as well. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, looks like the kill actually went to Voidal and Hylasang, so they traded support kills.
It's funny because they both picked up the kills, but also both died. So I'm trying to think of what scenario in which that would happen, whether both of the AD carries are still in pretty good shape in terms of how they are in HP, but both of the supports fell and picked up the kills. So that will accelerate their gold totals, means they can get closer to their initial sight stones.
And you can see AD carries are hanging around in the bottom lane quite a while here, with stacked well over 2,000 gold on both of them. So not wanting really to waver before the other one does. It's waiting for that spot to actually back pretty much at the same time, so that you kind of stay even on build, as we've seen that time and time again out of the AD carries. If you go back too early and your lane opponent comes back with a bigger item than you, oh, it's a painful lane.
Yeah, especially if you go back before you have the desired item, like Caitlyn might want to go for a BF sword and then only be able to get the pickaxe, and then you're further behind when it comes to power spikes. But this lane, that's not a problem at all. They have all the gold in the world and all the time to spend. So, a bit of a game of chicken. Who's going to be going back first? And Vardyke's still being poked down by Voidal. Taking another look at the top lane, however. This actually was getting ahead of Cabochard, but it seems like the amount of sustain he has now with the build board atop, this means he's sticking in that lane and isn't really dropping too much in terms of health.
Who's looking to set up for a gank here? The bubble is going to land.
Voidal lands the bubble onto Hylasang, and there's the Agni's Embrace onto 2 as well. Last auto attack from Voidal will follow him all the way back. Hylasang stays in place, takes their last living artillery, but the 1-for-0 means NIP will be coming out ahead.
Ku's looking to chase it, but he won't actually be able to pick that up, I don't believe. He's going to have to dive pretty deep. Yep, is not going to find him in the bush. I was going to say, probably not going to work out for you there, Ku, but top lane.
They will go for this gank. Dan uses the Assault and Battery, locks him down now into the Blood Well passive. How much health has he got to play with? The answer is not very much, and he will be kept in place. Twisted Advance locks him up, snares him, and he will pick up another kill. So 1-for-1 in terms of the entire map, but NIP in the better position to take down the Dragon, putting them slightly ahead.
Yeah, that all stemmed from a bubble that came out from Voidal. It looked like Hylasang wanted to just flay the AD carry in support of Ninjas in Pyjamas back a little bit, just try and disrupt them. They didn't really read that Ku was in the lane, and from their Agony's Embrace was enough of a slow and enough damage that they could put the damage down with Freeze, and Void was still there. So they both have gone back and started to itemize, and once again we're back to kind of seeing Trinity Force first out of a lot of Cogmores recently, particularly here in the Challenger scene. We're seeing that more than any other itemization. So interesting that that is in fact the build party's going for, whereas on the other side Vardyke's opting for that slightly better scaling Infinity Edge on Tristana.
And in the top lane we did see the turret being taken out by Unicorns of Love, Dan chiming in with the assist onto that. So they trade the top tower for the Dragon, which means in terms of gold, only 200 gold separates them. And as I say that, people just pick up more farm and they drag themselves slightly further ahead. But Ninjas in Pyjamas with a minor advantage, but nothing that will decide the game just yet. Cabochard will be walking down. Oh, walks right past the pink ward.
Yeah, didn't clear it. Should have just checked in there. But nevertheless, that's just actually going to give them the information that they're going to look to steal away the jungle and at least get in behind the middle lane. This is something that NIP like to do fairly often, is they look to steal the blue, they look to get in the backside of the mid lane and then just kind of pick up a kill and take the tower from there. It's pretty much just one of their plays that they do time and time again, and Cabochard will be aware that that has now been warded out, so they do have to be a little bit careful, as Ku is going to make his exit from the jungle as well. Yeah,
Ninjas in Pyjamas always play their game as the jungle is always going to be a given that they're going to be ahead in the jungle game, and then always play to try and capitalize on the next wave of buffs, and always over the objective as well. Vardyke's in the bot lane will be taking some harassment. Hansen goes forward, flashes into the box, but Dan is also there for the gank. Is Nami completely caught out? Yes, she is. Now the teleport coming in, followed by the Mega Inferno Bomb from the opposing mid lane. Alex just teleports right in the middle of everyone from Unicorns of Love. Dual kill for Tristana. May have wanted to counter that one.
Yeah, that was a bit of an interesting teleport. I'm not sure all that much that Alex really should have been teleporting in. I mean, the fight was long gone. Voidal was well dead there, just completely out of the fight. And that's going to give them the tower. I mean, the tower probably would have fallen anyway, but the fact they got another pick from that just gives Unicorns of Love that little bit more time to maybe push onto this inner tower. However, Ku is looking to flank in from the side. Is the follow-up damage there, though?
I'm not sure if they have the manpower, especially Alex is just dropping. That's the tower dropping on the other side of the map. They take an inner turret in response. Unicorns of Love just running rampant currently in Ninjas in Pyjamas jungle. Ku is still off to the side just in case they want that flank, but the rest of the team not reading from the same page will just go back to their lanes. 7-5. Unicorns of Love are looking very fluid in this game so far.
Yeah, just picking up 2 towers there. That's a good amount of gold that just went over to them. Cabachard is going to do his best here, but I don't think he's actually going to get this, not without getting that extra attack speed from his ultimate, because Maokai is about to get back into the lane. He's not choosing to do it, so this could be a bit of a precarious position.
It's going to be close, but Cabachard, if he picks up the turret, he's going to call worth. Physics actually is sticking to him. The auto attack, the rest of his skills, the arcane smash, the vengeful maelstrom. Cabachard, interrupts to Dark Flight, keeps him in place, and Cabachard, well, doesn't really have anywhere to run. Flash over the wall, will be juking out the way of Power of Evil's ultimate. Vardax, meanwhile, picks up Ku, but Cabachard, is he actually away? Power of Evil has roamed and jumps over the wall of Satchel Charge, is still following after. They will take the mid turret in response, so they really need this kill to happen. Cabachard jukes backwards, keeps himself in place. Now we'll go for the 1 versus 1. Ignite is ticking, he will be dropping to a point-blank bouncing bomb, but they pick up the middle turret. NIP definitely coming ahead slightly in that trade.
Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. Cabachard had drawn Power of Evil all the way up to the top side of the map, so it's an easy middle lane tower for Alex and the rest of NIP to end up taking down. So overall, that kind of evens up the gold between the two teams after Unicorns of Love had just secured themselves a little bit of an advantage. So the fact that's evened up may prey on the minds slightly of Unicorns of Love, but it was kind of an inevitability. That middle lane tower typically doesn't sit around for too long, especially not against a team like Ninjas in Pyjamas, who are very, very quick to take down those outer towers once they set their sights on them.
So, a couple mishaps this game that has resulted in Unicorns of Love punishing them pretty hard. Got the inner turret down in the bot lane already being taken out. However, Cabachard did manage to do the same. Paid his life for it, but will mean Unicorns of Love are still ahead in kills. Dragon spawning in 50 seconds. No doubt we'll see the supports going down there, trying to clear out the walls, place down their own, get the vision control over that area. Unicorns of Love again grouping up, looking to take yet another objective, this time in form of the middle turret. Bobbreaker is being charged up. He will jump onto Voidal. Great Tower Wave lands onto 3 members for the disengage. The tower falls down. It's dropping very, very quickly. Vizixachi is tanking up the whole rest of the team from Ninjas in Pyjamas. Bouncing bombs are raining down from Power of Evil on the back lines. Gets the first, gets the second. The double kill going onto Vardax. And Power of Evil will find himself the third of the fight. Makes up the 4th. Double kill for the mid lane. Double kill for the AD carry.
Massive team fight for Unicorns of Love. And this is perhaps what was happening yesterday with NIP, just they were getting caught out a little bit there. They didn't really want to fight over a low health tower, but they kind of ended up forced to it because Ku was so aggressively positioned that it ended up, Dan just ended up taking him out completely from the fight. And from there, it opens up the dragon, which has just spawned. So Unicorns of Love are about to take a massive lead in this game.
That cascaded out of control very quickly. Loses the mid turret, loses the team fight, loses another middle turret, and then loses the dragon. 4,000 gold opening up just in the blink of an eye from Unicorns of Love. Capitalizing on Ninjas in Pyjamas' mistakes. They've been making a couple plays this game, but it's mostly been, oh, you'll teleport into all 4 of us, I guess we'll kill you and take your turret.
I honestly feel like I would prefer to see Ku playing one of his more consistent junglers. And if my memory serves correct, Elise wasn't banned out in this game and typically has been a very commonly played jungler. Maybe it's not so good in the Protect the Cogmore style compositions, but I just feel like it fits Ku that little bit better than the slightly more defensive Evelyn. And, you know, it's one of those things that Ku is his best on aggressive champions, and he tries to be aggressive on champions like Evelyn when sometimes just the timing is not quite right.
Yeah, his gameplay doesn't change from game to game, no matter really what champion he's on. So if you're picking Evelyn and he does the same thing as he would on Lee Sin, then it's not going to work out. And we saw those results earlier this game. 18 minutes into the game, honestly, not that much time has passed, but Ninjas in Pyjamas are definitely sitting firmly in the passenger seat in this game, being taken for a ride by Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be in for Ninjas in Pyjamas because FaCEIT really hasn't got going this game at all. Whereas you look at a 5-1-3 Tristana, that's incredibly difficult to deal with. Not only does Tristana scale very well, it also is going to make her, the extra experience gives her that extra range. Oh, Alex Each is caught.
Assault and Battery keeps him in place. Just a matter of time for the rest of the team to catch up, but will be flashing over the wall. Power of Evil gets the bouncing bomb, so a Summoner Burn, but at least his life is still saved. Ku very close to being hit up by the Arcane Smash. The second will just slam into the minions.
Yeah, and as I was kind of mentioning, Tristana with that added range is going to be very difficult for NIP to deal with because essentially what they want to do is either get a really nice flank, which is kind of difficult against this team because of how Unicorns of Love are going to position, or at least sit back with FaCEIT. They don't want FaCEIT particularly far forward, and that doesn't leave too much to deal with Vardags, who already has an Infinity Edge, has a Zeal as well. He's well on the way to his second complete item, and Tristana with that massive attack speed stim is going to demolish Ninjas in Pyjamas if they cannot get on top of her.
5-1-3, that's scary, honestly, at the moment. FaCEIT sitting on 0-0-2, hasn't died yet this game. In fact, the only member of his team not to be going down for the count, and is out-farming his lane opponent, but at the same time, 5 kills, quite a big difference. You can see that in items, picked up the Trinity Force, but already an item and a half plus boots from Vardags means he will be out-trading him at this point in the game.
He will indeed. Now, Visitsatsi in the middle lane. He can clear waves pretty quickly looking at it. And to be honest, this has actually worked out pretty well. And we were wondering how it was going to go. The Maokai in the top lane works pretty well against Cabochard's Aatrox right now. Is pretty much keeping up in farm. Had a lot of pressure in lane, and Cabochard is 0-4. And that's not exactly something we're used to seeing when it comes to Ninjas in Pyjamas, that they have a lane that is so significantly further behind the rest of the team that it's difficult for them to do anything with an Aatrox. And Aatrox is certainly a champion that needs a couple of kills, a couple of items in order to really start competing.
So Visitsatsi has been allowed to be, or rather has been allowed to build a little bit of AP along with the rest of his tanky build, but we'll go Rod of Ages and then just supplement the rest of that with other pieces of armor. Voidor throws a Talon Wave over the Baron pit. We'll get the vision at least of Unicorns of Love as they try to sneak it, but the hook comes through, doesn't land onto a target. FaCEIT was able to take away the red buff. And that was a lot of damage onto Visitsatsi, literally just from the Baron, who's tanking up all the way through that last engagement, that last scuffle. So they will have to move away from the Baron.
Yeah, Unicorns of Love just deciding to, test the waters on that one. Had they been given the opportunity to take that, obviously they would have relished at it, but they weren't looking to fight there either. They just wanted to say, hey, if we start a Baron, are NIP actually going to react? Now, down in the bottom lane, Alex took down a turret, and that's actually a pretty significant win there for NIP. It's going to get them a little bit closer on the gold gap right now, but as for overall dynamics of this game, Unicorns of Love is still very much so ahead, but it's not by that much that NIP cannot easily come back into this with one fight.
That death sentence, yeah. Palasine going fishing. Didn't catch a Nami today. Very close to doing so. 13-5. There's not something you see very often versus Ninjas in Pyjamas, but Unicorns of Love seem to be anathema to them in the last couple of games we've seen them play. And sometimes teams just have other teams which they just can't play against. People have said that in LCS, like there's one team we just can't play against. We just always seem to mess up.
Yeah, it's, some teams just have the mind games, the mental edge. Ooh, Parameter checks into Cabochard.
He gets the Massacre. Lots of damage coming out from Cabochard, but he's just too weak at the moment. Bloodwell comes up. Will be keeping him alive. Flashes away. Bouncing Bomb and the Mega Inferno Bomb. Makes sure he will stay down. And there's a Talon Wave coming across. Will be locking up practically everyone from Unicorns of Love. Dan has gone in very deep. And the ultimate from FACEIT didn't really land on anyone. He will be taken down before actually was able to use it. So 2-1 and tower for Unicorns of Love.
And not only is Tristana going to do a lot of damage, but a 6-0-3 now Ziggs is going to do so much when it comes to that burst damage in fights. Ku, what are you doing? You cannot really stay there. Oh, Unicorns of Love are just going to let him get away with it. He was stealth, but they saw him put that ward down.
Where did that ward come from? I don't know. But Unicorns of Love, you now go for the safer option of Dragon, which is currently just respawned in the bottom side of the map. And Baron, meanwhile, is still alive. 23 minutes into the end, 24 minutes rather. Ku, that's dangerous. I mean, he kind of wants to steal. Another ward just appears from nowhere. Palasine takes out living artillery. Ku really wants to try and go for the steal, but only Freeze is really there. I'm not sure if it's worth it. Voidal was also entering the fight. Cabochard jumps over the wall. I don't think people were really wanting to go for this fight, but he forced them to stick around. Voidal was almost on the receiving end of a very angry Vi. So 1-0 and the Dragon. Ninja Pyjamas, not sure if they should even have been there.
Yeah, Cabochard really isn't playing up to the standard that neither Cabochard nor Ninjas in Pyjamas are used to right now. And I wonder whether it's the synergy with the team. He has been playing with them for a little bit, but actually wasn't in yesterday's games, if I remember rightly. He unfortunately couldn't make the Black Monster Cup games, so for whatever reason, has spent a little bit of time not playing with the team. I wonder how many games and scrims they've played today, because Cabochard is looking a little rusty. I'm just going to say that straight up. Maybe it's the surprise in that top lane, but when it comes to his mid-game decision-making as well, it's been hit and miss.
Well, if you look at the statistics in DreamHack before that, all the other taunts they played, they looked really strong with FACEIT in the top lane than the other players, and then having another player in mid lane. But while it was happening, well, looks like Baron's gone from Unicorns of Love. Ninjas in Pyjamas, not even aware it was happening. And that's just another objective going over to Unicorns of Love.
It is indeed. And NIP now are just, their only option is to fall back. They are significantly far behind right now, and Unicorns of Love have just got such good damage right now that it's very difficult for NIP to actually take these fights. Aatrox isn't tanky. Ku isn't particularly tanky either right now, and Dan is charging up the Vault Breaker, looking to go aggressive, but looks like they're just going to take down this tower.
Yeah, and pretty much just a winter at the moment from the Ninjas in Pyjamas. They haven't really gone out with a bang. They're just sitting around waiting for the inevitable.
Up until this point, Unicorns of Love weren't stacking either, so Ku was looking to get in through the side with an Agony's Embrace, but the positioning was so good that maybe only 2 members would have been caught by that, and really they can't afford to only hit 2 people with an Agony's Embrace. It needs to be 3 or 4 right now.
Everything needs to hit. You have to land the Agony's Embrace on 4 or 5 people. Ku is in the bush, and he did just get attacked by something, but they didn't notice, so he's behind them. And if Alex can also land a shockwave onto 4 or 5 people, then this game is still up for grabs. But it's a big ask.
It is, and there's a lot of damage going down onto Freeze, actually, and Unicorns of Love are just going to split up a little bit. This may be the time for Ku to go.
Oh, this is actually Power of Evil. They're sitting around. Unicorns of Love. Will they stack up? They're deliberately spacing out, which is causing problems for Ku. He's trying to find the right time to engage. He has moved up a little bit as they siege this turret, but is becoming to get to the point where it's now or never. Vardak has been called out. Agony's Embrace lands onto 2 players, but Voidal is already getting chunked. So is FACEIT and Freeze off to the back line. They haven't even really entered the fight, and they already have to leave it. Cabochard gets taken down once again. 0-7. In this game. 17-6. There's the flash into the Arcane Smash and the Twisted Advance. Vardags will also get the assist, but this is just a whitewash at the moment for Unicorns of Love.
It really is. This is a big win for the Unicorns of Love. Alex is in trouble again.
He also gets called out, but this is just going to be the end of the game. Unicorns of Love have played a fantastic game so far. Dan will just be zoning away as the Nexus is falling. It's just a matter of time. And Ninjas in Pyjamas get taken out in the first game of today, in the final day of the group stages here at the FACEIT Challenger Invitational. That was not the result I think a lot of people were expecting.
No, and I think you'd be forgiven for thinking that as well. Even though Unicorns of Love competed against NIP yesterday and did a good job there as well, NIP are a team that everybody has said they will make it to LCS. Everybody has pinned that down. Is NIP, there is no doubt in our minds, will be an LCS team next season. And if they play like that, Not likely, because Unicorns of Love could very well beat them in, some kind of challenger playoffs and take their spot from them.
Yeah, maybe a lot of people yesterday were thinking maybe it was a one-off, it was the curveball play from Unicorns of Love, but even with a more conventional composition, with a Maokai friend in the mix, they still performed very well. And I think if you substituted just a standard, quote-unquote standard top laner from Unicorns of Love, that game would have gone the same way. Like, it wasn't all revolving around...
I think it's possible, and likely it would have gone the same way. It didn't revolve around a pick, but maybe it was just unsettling enough for Cabochard that he wasn't sure how to play the lane, which puts him off his game. Plus, he hasn't really played too much with the team in the last couple of days from what we're aware of social media and other games that they've played. Plus, he's new to the team anyway. So it's one of those things is if you find potential weaknesses and make it even more difficult for that player to get themselves into the regular groove, it is another way of beating a team. Not to say that Cabochard was the main reason there, but his laning phase and just performance in that game wasn't what NIP are normally playing like. And to be honest, neither was the rest of NIP.
Yeah, well, they have another shot later today in the rest of the games, but we will be taking a quick break, but when we get back, we'll be back with the second game of today. We do have a total of 4 to come up later, but until then, we'll see you soon.